Hello, it's Carlo Prusa, and today I am joined by a very special guest. My guest is a three-time King Pancrase champion. He is a former Pride commentator. He's the former UFC World Heavyweight Champion. He's a UFC Hall of Famer. He has, I think, about 5 million stories. They call him El Guapo, Mr. Bas Rutten. Bas, I leave anything out there?
Yeah, it's a whole bunch of stuff, man. I did so much stuff. Sometimes, they start rattling what I did. I go, whoa, actually, I did a lot when I realize it. You don't realize it until people start saying it. It's cool. It's very cool.
Boss, let's get into this. You've been very outspoken on your bullying. You've talked about in the past that, one of the reasons why you got into mixed martial arts was to defend yourself because of bullying. But at what point in your childhood did you come up with the idea that, MMA was the way to handle this?
Well, MMA wasn't around yet, right? I mean, I was 28 when MMA came around, so that was the last stage. But 12, I was 12 years old, and I saw Bruce Lee Enter the Dragon from Bruce Lee. And that was it. That's when I found out that that guy was smaller than me, could defend himself like that. You're a kid, you think it's movies, it's real. And I thought, hey, if I learn that, I can take care of my bullies. And that's literally what I did. It took 2 years to convince my parents, but finally they did. And then I started training with the adults. Actually, I had a guy taking me under his wing, so to say. He was dating a really beautiful neighbor girl that I had, and he was the cool guy in town. Xavier, that's how you pronounce it in Holland. And that was it. Within 6 weeks, I started beating some of the adults, and then I overheard him talk about me in the dressing room. How good I was and that had talent. And as a kid, if you only hear negative stuff, but suddenly you hear adults speaking good of you, you tend to listen to that. And then I got into a fight with the biggest bully in my school, and I knocked him out, one punch. That was it. Six of his buddies were surrounding me on their bicycles. And that was it. It was suddenly 90% less. And then I made a list and I started going after every bully. That's pretty much how it went. And I got them. I got all of them. So
Now, going into your first MMA fight in Pancrase, going into it, did you have an opponent lined up? And did you know the weight class you were going to be in, or did that something that all changed on you?
it all changed on me. I had no clue. I didn't know. I thought there were weight classes, and I found out on the day of the fight there wasn't a weight class. And it's fun when you meet your opponent who is, I think, 6'3", and he was like, I think 28 or 32 pounds heavier than I was. And I go, is he not too heavy? I asked the owner. And he said, no, we have no weight classes. I go, oh, great. That's awesome. But I looked at my manager. I go, what the heck, dude? And I said, how many rounds are we fighting? He goes, one round. I go, oh, great. How many minutes? He goes, 30. I go, great. I was just bluffing at that moment because inside I wasn't really that happy. Because, yeah, I didn't know anything. I mean, now I'm in Japan. They're known to be tough. You got a guy who's like 30 pounds heavier than you are. And then on top of that, you have one round to 30 minutes. But I truly believe that made the way I explain it, a lot of fighters will tell you this. There's really good fighters in the gym. You call them the dojo fighters. But somehow they work circles around the world champions, but somehow they cannot control it under the fight in the fight. I was like that. I was like that in Thai boxing. So the thing stopped finally. Um, I was at the Thai boxing. So in Thai boxing, although I knocked a lot of people out, I wasn't in control. It was just a lot of anger and a lot of coming, and I had just physical. I was just very strong, and I just knocked him out. But against a really good guy like a Peter Ertz at the time or something, that he was not in my class even because he was a class above me. But guys like that would be a problem for me. And in Japan, that completely changed on the first fight. And I think all that stuff has to do something with it because I realized that if I go berserk, like I always do in Thai boxing, and I can put him away in the first 1.5 minutes. I got 28 and a half minutes more to go. That was not good. Okay. And then I thought also the audience, because it's so quiet there, so peaceful, I think the people not screaming at me put me completely in control. And that was it. I was literally, while I'm fighting, I'm thinking, what the heck is going on here? So that's how calm I was. I heard everybody speak. I remember on the first row were some American people talking to each other. I heard what they were saying to each other. It was something I never experienced before in Thai boxing.
Now, a guy that's always going to be linked to your career is going to be Fanat. You
Yeah.
lost to him in the first fight. How did that loss change you as a fighter?
Not yet there. I was still a knucklehead, I was still thinking I could get away. Okay, so what happened was I lost my submission toe hold. And for the people who don't know what a toe hold is, don't let that name fool you. It's not like they hold your toe. I saw John Noble break his shin bone in Pancrase with a toe hold. So it's a pretty gnarly move. I didn't know what it was. I knew it hurt. I always said, because it was very painful. But then, I came back and I knocked another guy out. I came back and knocked another guy out. Well, why would I start training on the ground? Just learn some takedown defense. That was my thought, but then I lost the second time by submission, and then I won a few more fights by knockout. And then I lost a third time against Ken Shamrock. That was it for me. That was it that I said, okay, I got to flip this whole thing. Then I became vocal because until then, believe it or not, I just fought on the back. I did 2 times a day, 12 rounds on the back. That was my training. I would go, yes, to Amsterdam once in a while, like every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but an hour and a half doing that in a couple of weeks is simply not good. But I had nobody to train with. And then I started being outspoken. I asked everybody. And I found this one guy, Leon Van Dyke. And was a very gifted striker as well, but also a very gifted athlete. And we just started rolling 2-3 times a day. And then we became obsessed with it. I realized all the potential and the combinations and the setups. And if you change those setups and you make them different than other people do, oh my God, you can be very effective. And I start modifying submissions, see if I could make them better or make a better fit for me. And that was it, that's after my last loss against Ken, I won my next 8 fights by submission. That was like people were like, what the heck is going on? 7 by finish, but 1 with submission control. I didn't finish that guy. So and that completely changed me. I never lost a fight anymore after that. So that's why my last 22, I didn't lose, but it was just because I made a conscious decision to start training. The people, and in general, and this is really the whole world right now, we all want to do what we want to do, what we like to do. So if you're a really great striker, you go into the gym and you just start beating people up because that's so fun to do. On the ground, it's not fun because they're gonna beat me up, you see. But once you kick that ego out and you start rolling, and I never had that problem actually because I was with Leon, and although Leon was great, I don't think he ever submitted me. So now I had to create ways to make myself, for instance, really tired. I would kick a kicking shield 3 times with the right, 3 times with the left, as hard as I could for like a minute or a minute and a half, throw the shield away, lay on my back, he jumps on top, and then I would start fighting. And then 2 minutes on the ground, go back to the kicking shield. So every time I would make myself really tired, he gets rest, so he could really put the pressure on me. And somehow I think that was a perfect game plan because now it was striking and ground, striking. So unknowingly, I was doing all the good things. I guess I was cross training. I also realized with power training, I do these 50 seconds, 50 seconds exercises, 12 exercises, 10 seconds to go to the next exercise. It's like a pushing exercise, a pulling exercise, pushing, pulling. And it would always have also 50 seconds of kicking, like going berserk kicking. And I don't mean kicking what people do with the hip still and do this. No, I mean everything you got, and that will get you tried. Trust me. So I was combining power training with stamina. And I think that just put me ahead of a lot of people. Like now everybody is like that, but in that time I was one of the few ones, so that's why I did really well. That's why I had that stamina, because if you break it up, if you only do, for instance, ground fighting, and then the next day you do striking, and then you do wrestling, and you break it up, you don't get tired from that. It's a certain game you're playing. The mixture, that's why mixed martial arts is so hard. If you're really tired and people start taking you down and you have to flex your core the whole time for a takedown to stop a takedown, well, if you flex, you can't breathe, right? Your breathing is done by your diaphragm inhaling. So it interrupts the breathing pattern, and that's why you get tired. So, yeah, unknowingly, I was doing all the right things, apparently.
Now, going into that second fight against Funaki, before the fight, altercation in the back, you two almost got into it. How important was it for you to stay calm before that fight?
Calmness is everything. You take 2 guys equally skilled. The guy who's the hothead is probably going to lose 9 out of 10 times. He might get lucky one time, but it's the guy who's in control who's going to win. So for me, it's very important to have no negativity in the dressing room, no nothing. So and Funaki, that was just before the fight. In the ring, he did it. It was so out of character. He just walked up to me and he stood like this distance and he slits his throat with his thumb. I'm looking at my manager saying, "Oh, I'm going to kill this guy now." I'm pissed. Why would he do that? I got so angry, and my manager was saying, "Stay calm, stay calm." That was the only instruction they had. I never had a coach. It was my manager, and if I would get hit, the only thing he would shout, "Stay calm," because he knows I'm a hothead. So he said right away, "You got to stay calm." I said, "I'll stay calm. You watch." I said, "But if I connect, and he's dazed, I'm gonna go to town." And thankfully that happened. Like 12 minutes in, suddenly I connected. First of all, my game plan against Funaki the second time, he never fought more than 15 minutes. And I thought I was going to get inside his head to just defend myself, getting out of the submissions and just relaxing, And now I had a whole different animal. I was a completely different animal. My submission game was good. I knew exactly what I could and what I couldn't do. But at 12, I wanted to wait for 15 minutes because every 5 minutes they announce it. And I thought maybe mentally he's going to do something to him. If he hears, hey, it's 15 minutes, shit, now I'm in the longest fight that I ever had, and that could, throw him off a little bit. But at 12 minutes, he made an illegal move. I was sitting on my knees and he kicked me in the face, which I blocked. But that pissed me off. And I think literally 10 seconds later, I dropped him for the first time. And then I just went really to time. Yeah, that fight is considered by many my best fight, but also Funaki's because, dude, he kept coming up, man. It was insanity. I mean, I have bruised palms. I have bruises on my knees from kneeing him in the face. It's crazy. I broke both cheekbones. His nose was broken. I mean, he just kept coming up until the final knee. I grabbed him by the hair. I remember he had a lot of hair, which was a legal thing to do there. So it was, you were allowed. And I just grabbed his hair and then I kneed him in the face as hard as I could. That's it. He stood down. He stayed down finally. I was happy. I was getting really tired.
Now, you mentioned you had the bruised palms. And one thing I thought with Pancrase, I think is so interesting is you weren't allowed to throw closed fist punches. You had to throw those open palm punches. And now, when you first got into that, was that hard to adapt to, or what do you think of that style?
For me, it was perfect because I used to hit the back like that. I was a bouncer and I saw all my partners break their hands. If you fight multiple guys, it's not like you're really going to aim for the freaking jaw. You just hit what you hit because you're fighting multiple guys, a lot of stress going on. But you hit a skull, that's it, your hand breaks. And I saw that happening to them. And I go, you know what? I'm just going to freaking palm strike him in the face like Bud Spencer and Terence Hill. You guys probably don't know. It's the spaghetti westerns from the old days. Bud Spencer was the big guy, the overweight guy who would just slap people in the face and it would fly on the guard. And then the other one, Terence Hill, he was the fast guy with the guns. He was, he slapped people, and it was a comedy, but it was a really good. They were very famous. It was Italian, actually. There were two Italians, and that was it. I just palm striked on the back. So for me to make that transition, it was actually pretty easy.
Now, let's transition a little bit into the UFC here. When the UFC began in the mid 90s, initially, what were your thoughts around it?
The no referee thing, I didn't like that. I remember they asked me if you want to do it, and I told them no. Once I saw Gerard Godot, it's a friend of mine, kicking the teeth out and the teeth flying next to the commentators, and the referee is not allowed to step in. Listen, I'm a crazy guy, but I'm not like the other guys who say I want to die in the cage. That's not me. I like my life very much. I like my family very much. So if I get knocked out and that's some crazy guy, and we saw this happening in the earliest UFCs, just keep on hitting you while you're out because they don't have control. They're so afraid. That's why they keep doing it. It's like somebody, when they stab somebody, you hear they just stab 45 times. It's because they all lose control. And that's what happened with those guys as well. They just lose control. They just keep hitting that. They don't even realize you're out. No, that's brain damage, and thankfully it never happened to me, but still, there's a chance that might happen. So I said, nah, I don't want to do it. I said, if there's a referee, sign me up. I'll do it immediately. And then thankfully, Big Joe McCarthy put his foot down because he said, something's going to happen. And then I believe it was Tank Abbott. He was getting a beating. And John was looking in the corner at this corner because they could throw in the towel. And the corner would turn their backs to John. And then, well, it happened. He got knocked out, got a few more shots. And then later, John McCarthy went to the corner and he said, listen, why were you guys turning around for me? Then he said, no, well, Tank told us that if we would throw in the towel, he would beat the crap out of us. And that's when Big John put his foot down. He says, listen, if you want me to continue this, to be the referee, I have to be allowed to step in because otherwise somebody's going to die. And thankfully they listened to him, and they did that because all the rules we have right now, there's Jeff Goldblum, I believe the wrestler at the time who unfortunately passed away now, and Big Joe McCarthy, both these guys are instrumental in the whole mixed martial arts in the world. I mean, they coined the phrase mixed martial arts, came from John. So thankfully they had a really good guy. You see, when the stars align, I always say, it's the right people for the job. And boy, was he the right person for the job.
Now, during your UFC career, you were supposed to fight Randy Couture at one time. The fight never happened. Was that something that was disappointing to you? Do you always wish that you could have fought Randy? And how do you think that contest would have went down?
Well, I really wanted to fight Randy just to see, and I had the utmost respect for Randy, and thankfully we became good friends. So thankfully it never happened afterwards, But it was. It didn't really matter at that time for me. Listen, I was 22 fights undefeated. I was willing to fight everybody, So I was like, I just wanted to see how far I could bring this thing. That's why I want to fight Rickson Gracie, You're going to win him? I said, no, but I would love to try. I mean, everybody says the best guy. Can I stay out of a submission game? Well, it would be great to see if I can actually pull that one off. It was just a test because they said he was the best. There's never been a personal thing. It's always been, if I'd gone for somebody big, Fedor, there was talk about me fighting Fedor, but I said, give me 2 weeks to train to see if my injuries came back. I said, unfortunately, I cannot do it. But also they say, you think you can beat him? Well, first of all, yes. Because that's just how the mind of a fighter should think, right? If I go into the fight thinking I might lose, that's not a healthy way to go to a fight, and I know it's going to be an animal. It's going to be a tough fight. But yeah, I like those challenges because let's face it, we all want to find out if we can really hang with the big guys.
Now, fighting Kevin Randleman, obviously you won the title off of Kevin. How important was that fight for your legacy in your career?
Oh, I think it was everything, Nobody knew about Pancrase. All my 32 fights, whatever I had over there, but only the hardcore people, they knew about Pancrase. But the new people that didn't. So I knew if I would get the title, it would help me in whatever I wanted to pursue later in life. Whether it's acting, stunt, whatever, and commentating. I never knew I was going to be a commentator. That came by accident. All these things I never counted on. It just appeared. They just asked me, and I go, "Oh, okay, well, let's try it out." So then I was there. So yeah, it was very important to win a UFC title.
Now let's talk about Pride, obviously, a little bit. What made Pride such the spectacle? I mean, it was a sense of magic there. There was a mystique there. What made it so magical?
The rules, the first 10 minutes and the 5 minute overtime, and the title fight 5 minute overtime. You have to be more strategical. Now you have to wait. You can't go as crazy as you want with normal 5 minute rounds because you never know. They didn't look at weight. Weight classes. Yeah, they came in later, but I mean, we've seen guys. Emmanuel Yarbrough was fighting, right? I mean, against, what was his name? Hideki, I don't remember his name anyway. He was like 175 pounds against a 550-pound guy. You see stuff like that. Bob Sapp coming in and, just these crazy and then they have the talent, Sakuraba beating 4 Gracies. Nobody ever did that. He put Pride on the map. And then you have Federal Millionaire, Miracle Crow Cup. I mean, you name it. Quinton Rampage Jackson. I mean, you can keep on going. The fights were just insane. Also, the packages they made for these fighters. The pre-show stuff. I mean, it was way light years ahead of what the America did. I remember we had Dana there with Chuck Liddell because he was going to enter the tournament, the lightweight tournament. And with the opening, I turned at Dana and I saw him sitting there, and he was literally with his mouth open. And then he catches me looking at him. I go, crazy, right? He goes, insane. It was so big and so good, as everybody knew about it. And the small show would be 45,000 people. Think about that, 45,000. That was the Saitama Arena, not expanded. For a bigger show, they would expand and then get hold 48,000 people. I mean, we did 91,500 people when we did the Dynamite show. I mean, it was just bizarre. People everything about it was cool. And especially, of course, the soccer kicks and That was very effective. And the knees on the ground. You know, I always said, oh no, knees were allowed. Yeah, I always said that also in mixed martial arts. I'd rather have them take the elbows out and add knees on the ground. I think it's more effective. Elbows, and especially at the time, from the 100 fights that get stopped, at least 95 were just by cuts. You know, and 5% was maybe by a knockout. So the knockout percentage wasn't that high, but there was a cut. And as a fighter, let's face it, what they always said with mixed martial arts, you want to be as close to street fighting as possible, right? Because then you really know who's the toughest guy. Well, in the street, you know, you can bleed everywhere. You're not going to stop, right? But now, as the referee is going to stop the fight, that's not kind of a real loss, you know. Yeah, but it goes in your eyes. I understand that. But, you know, if you really want to find out who's the toughest guy, that's the guy who's going to deal with that and see if you can keep on going. So I said, why not adding knees on the ground to the head and take the elbows out? I would have been okay with that. Soccer kicks, no, by the way. I think it's a little bit too much.
Now, acting as a commentator, did you find any similarities, like mindset wise, from commentating to fighting? There anything similar that you would do before a fight, whether if you were calling it or you were actually fighting in it?
No, it's just, again, it's just preparation. You know, preparation is the key to everything. You know, if you want to kill the nerves, or at least 80% of the nerves, that's coming in prepared. You know, if you walk to a fight and you know you cannot go the distance, that's not a fun feeling. You know, you made a mistake, and that's the same with being live on TV. What people don't realize is it's live. You know, you can make a mistake. Well, you can, but you have to find ways to how to deal with that. You know, so yeah, preparation is the key to success in everything. So that was it, just preparation. And for me, it's color. You know, like guys like Stephen Cordes at the time and Mauro Ronaldo, you know, Kenny Rice, but it wasn't for but guys like that, the play-by-play guys like John Anik, that's the real job in commentating. Those guys have to know all the names, all their histories, their records. I mean, if they're married, they're not married. I mean, every little detail these guys know. You know, for us color guys, it's actually pretty easy. That's how I got the job. I was just sitting backstage in the with Mark Kerr was fighting. I was his coach at the time, and we were on the show. And I said, "Oh, look at this! He's going to armbar him. He's going to get him in an armbar." And they go like, "What do you mean? He's not doing anything." I said, "I give it 10 seconds or so." And then 10 seconds later, he goes for an armbar and he finishes him. And then I did it again with a knee bar. He was sitting on fours. I think it was Sakuraba against Carlos Newton. I go, "Oh, dude, he's going to roll him into a knee bar." And they go, "What do you mean?" I said, "Just wait. Give it a little time." And again, boom, he rolls into a knee bar. And that was it. That's when they asked me. Next show was Pride 2000, was the tournament. We're going to do a live broadcast to America. Do you want to be the commentator? I said, "Oh, I'll never try it. I never did it. So yeah, well, let's do it." I had no clue to bring a suit. I had no suit with me. You know, all these funny openings that we had at Pride, that we were forced to do that because this idiot right here didn't bring a suit. I never looked at commentators. I hear him, you know, I was a weird guy at the time. And so we had to come up with something else. So now suddenly I'm sitting there with my freaking shorts and my Hawaiian shirt on. And they go, "How are we going to do the opening?" And I go, "Okay, wait a minute. We had Michael Braverman. He was the first producer. He was a really good guy. Unfortunately, somebody booted him out, some dumbass. But I said, "Okay, what if you are backstage with like 6 geishas? They're fanning you down, feeding you grapes, and you're telling them war stories. And Stephen Quadros is inside the arena. He's opening up the show. He throws it to you. And Bas Rutten is inside, you know, he's relaxing a little bit. He comes to me and I go, yeah, you know, being the tough guy to the guys, go, okay, 1 second, ladies, 1 second." And I would talk about the fight, boom, 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 boom. And then, you know, we would continue. And then the people loved that so much because they thought we did it on purpose, but we didn't. So, but since they loved it very much, now we became part of Pride. Every show, we had one of those crazy openings that we would do. You know, see, that's all things get born by accident. And most of the time, those things are the most fun.
One of the stories of Pride that I think is absolutely hilarious is it true that you guys had to go back and redo the commentary over past Pride events?
Yeah, in the studio. We did like freaking, I don't know how many shows, it was a whole bunch of shows. I remember we sitting there with Red Bull and what was it, another one of those freaking power drinks, Stephen Carlos and myself. Dude, it was insane all day long, commentating. Like a couple of days actually. So yeah, we had to do that so to match everything else.
Currently you're doing some work with karate combat. How do you enjoy doing that? And for people who maybe not have seen it, can you just describe it briefly on what it is?
Karate Combat is a full contact karate league, and we fight in a kind of a pit. It's a square pit with like a 45-degree angle walls, and there's also takedowns allowed, which are allowed in karate. There's no kicks to the thighs, but there's calf kicks. It's allowed. For the rest, all the punches, knees are allowed. No elbows though. They want to avoid the clinch. In the clinch, you can knee, but you can't hold your opponent. So I already saw some guys because that recently got introduced, those new rules. So there you see guys pushing against their opponent, and then they start kneeing from there. So which is completely illegal. But with the takedowns and the wall, and you can use the wall to your advantage. You can run it up, and you can jump in punches, jump in kicks. I mean, you can use it to escape. If they push you in the corner, you can literally walk up the wall because it's 45-degree, and then you're gone. But yet Raymond Daniels, he knocked some guy down. He falls on the ground, and he uses the wall to go behind him, and then he starts raining down punches. Last event we had Raymond Daniels versus Rafael Agaev. That was last weekend, and Agaev, well, he was the underdog, but he's the GOAT of karate, right? And since Raymond Daniels he's such a freak. I mean, unbelievable what this guy can do, But freaking Rafael Agaev, he came in prepared. He won that fight. It was like, whoa, that was crazy. But he was just in his face the whole time. When you give a guy like that space, yeah, I don't want to fight Raymond Daniels and give him space. Trust me, I'll be in his face the whole time. You got to cut him off because otherwise he throws out these crazy kicks. He'll give you a left front kick, and while he's doing that, he makes a back kick and he kicks you with the right Ushiro Mawashi, like a spinning kick in the head. Stuff like that's very hard to prepare for. Or that 720-degree punch that we saw of him, jumps him in the air, makes a 720, and then boom, lands, knocks him out with a hook. That's stuff you see in video games. It's a very dangerous opponent. So yeah, that guy, you want to be in there as fast as you can because otherwise it will go wrong for you, which is never a good thing.
I saw a video last week from Orlando where it was you and Alex Pereira, and you guys were having a competition who could have the hardest leg kick. And
Yeah.
If I was read it correctly, Pereira set the record.
Yeah, it was. He did. No, 100%. But I'm counting like this. I got to come up with a little defense for myself. My mind was 89 and some. He had 90, and so 89,000 and some. So I think the record after us with a kick was like 70. And so I had 89 and something. He had 90 or something. So it wasn't that big of a difference. And then I consider my age, 20 years older. and by the way, I've never seen a guy that big. I don't know how he can be 185. I have no clue how he can do that. I mean, he could be on 230 pounds. He's a giant. That's a big guy, So and then he knows how to hit. That's it. That's a scary guy.
What do you think of a guy like that? He's been around for a while, obviously kickboxing, but now in the UFC, he's in his mid-30s. And I mean, he just knocked out Adesanya in very good fashion. And a lot of people are saying, we don't know who can beat this guy. Overall, what do you think of him?
Listen, every guy that excels in what he does, it's amazing. It's just an amazing guy to be such a great kickboxer already, knocking everybody out, already beat Adesanya there twice, and then comes to mixed martial arts, becomes a world champion. I mean, what is not, that's super impressive, If I was him, and he probably does that because Clover, his coach, is a very smart guy. Pedro He's and all these guys are friends of mine. It's wrestling, man. You're going to have to start because nobody, that's going to be the same as me. I knocked my first two guys out in Japan. And from that moment on, they were shooting every single time. Nobody was going to stand with me anymore. And he will have exactly that problem. If you knock out Israel Adesanya, yeah, trust me, they're not going to strike with him. So he needs to get ready for the ground because that's what's going to happen now. So, but he's an athlete, and athletes, they pick up fast. So hopefully he's picking up that game really fast.
All right, two more questions for you, Bas. You sponsored Amanda Nunes in one of her first fights in the UFC. The Bas Rutten logo was on her trunks. Did you see something? Did you see greatness in her from the beginning?
Yeah, they showed me a video of her hitting the focus mitts or the Thai pass, what it was at the time. I go, oh yeah. Yeah. I go, I'll sponsor her. Jeez, what an animal. Yeah, it's an amazing human being also, outside also. She's so respectful. I really enjoy her career. Amazing. Same Shevchenko, that's also one of those ladies who are vicious, but then outside are so sweet, and such a beautiful ladies, beautiful spirits. It's cool to watch.
Last question for you, boss. We're almost done 2022 here, going into 2023. What are the goals for Bas Rutten?
The goals for Bas Rutten is to make my long training device, the O2 trainer, bigger. That's my biggest goal right now. And the only way to do that is to once I get inside that people's heads, that's it. Everybody wants to have the stamina like Tony Ferguson. They're always talking about it. And then my answer is look at him breathe. If I tell you to take a deep breath, 95%, do this. That means you completely breathe wrong. You can get up to 5 times more oxygen in your body by just breathing the correct way and when you're training your breathing muscles. You see what people don't realize is that your lungs are two bags. There's no muscle in the lung, right? The only way for them to open is by chest expansion. And because there's a vacuum between the body and the lungs, if you expand your chest, that's how you pull the air in. So your chest doesn't expand because air comes in. It's the other way around. It's a mind trick. Now, if you're gassing and fighting, that means that your body starts regulating the blood flow. So if you're running a hill, for instance, and suddenly you start gassing, what that happens is that actually takes the oxygenated blood away from your legs, and it sends it to the number one priority in your body, which are your 11 pounds. You have 11 pounds of breathing muscles, which are your diaphragm and the intercostal muscles in between the ribs. So if you update those muscles and you make those strong as well, they don't have to steal the blood anymore. People go, blood stealing. Yeah, that's a medical term, actually. Blood stealing, how they call it. So once you update that, it's just bizarre. And chest expansion, the more chest expansion you have, the easier it is to fill up your lungs. And I don't understand people. They all want the stamina of Tony Ferguson. And all the guys in the UFC, when you see a guy who's incredible shape always, look at him breathe. He goes back to the corner, and that's like this. All the other guys who are not in such shape, and you see him raising the chest. Well, raising the chest, 4 to 6 of these breaths is the same as one freaking belly breath. So if you start focusing on that, I mean, it's bizarre. I mean, Leo de Machina wrote me, send me a voicemail message. He had COVID. He was doing it for 4 minutes. It takes 5 minutes a day, less than 5, like 4.5 minutes max. And he just had COVID. And after the COVID, 2 days after that, he started doing training with his students who are fighting in the UFC, who are in Bellator and all this. He says, boss, I was outworking everybody. My stamina has never been like this. It's the most insane thing. I go, that's what I'm trying to tell the people. But if you see it, it's a plastic device, a rubber device. You go, like, that's it? Yeah, that's it. But what it does for you, asthma, COPD. I mean, I have an ad out there. If your asthma or COPD is not gone for 70% or more within 1 month, so it's 30 repetitions. And again, it's only 4.5 minutes a day. I'll give you your money back. And not one person has asked the money back because it all works. Once you do it, it really works. So that's why I'm trying to get inside the heads of people right now, because all these freaking top athletes like Jack Daniels, I always talk about it. It's not a drink, of course. This is the most known endurance coach on the planet. Well, the first thing they do, somebody walks in, a new athlete, take your shirt off, and they look how he breathes. And that person breathes, how he or she. And if it's wrong, they fix that first, and then they start training them. You see, so it's the most important thing for endurance athletes. But in fighting, apparently, not a lot of people pay attention to it. It drives me nuts. But I'm there. I'll keep pushing and see what happens. I can publish medical journals on the website that back up everything that I say. So it's not me saying it. These are the freaking best doctors on the planet. They say it. You punch it in inspiratory muscle training in a published medical website, you'll get 1,500 results. And then watch what it does for you. It's bizarre that nobody is doing it. And especially after just less than 5 minutes a day.
Well, awesome, Bas. I wish nothing but the best for you for 2023. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
You're very welcome. Push. That's what we say in karate. Comes from 2 words. Oshi, push. Shinobu, endure. To push and to endure. Put it together. There's your who. So from now on, everybody can do it because that's life, right? Push and endure.